What's going on, guys? It's Slim.
And I'm Sully, as usual. Welcome back to the Slim and Sully channel.
Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah, hey, so here we are to review, what's it called, Slim?
Guardians of the Galaxy
Volume
2.
Dos, if you're a Spanish speaker. Guardians of the Galaxy, obviously a surprise hit of 2014. Really, really great film. I love it. I think it's a great, charming sci-fi flick. Awesome way of Marvel to move away from superheroes on Earth while also, being in the same universe. But I didn't like it as much as you. You loved the first Guardians.
I did. I love the first one. It's one of my favorite movies. Seen it over 30 times.
He can quote it.
I could quote it if you watch it with me. I can go
word.
word for word. I could be any character in that movie and just pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, it nails the performances. Slim could do a one-man show as Guardians of the Galaxy.
I could. I'm thinking about doing it, actually.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 opens with a real bang, doesn't it, Slim?
We
start off in Missouri on the planet.
Misery. On the planet Earth.
That's right. In some year in the 80s, right?
1980 to be exact. The 80.
We pan in on a car, and who do we see in there?
We see a little bit of a young Kurt Russell.
Great de-aging technology being used again by Disney here. Kurt Russell looked...
I didn't even realize they were using de-aging technology. I thought he was just, never aged.
Escape from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Russell. We see they plant a little sorry seed right in the beginning.
That's a very good plan.
Right behind the DQ, if you know what I'm talking about.
The DQ.
We've all snuck a seed behind the DQ. And so it plants that seed, and then we cut to the opening scenes where we're going to see not the opening, but the opening with the Guardians. And they have got some notoriety since the first film, taking on some bigger jobs, getting some cashin' over. And they're defending these batteries from this space creature, which was a really cool sequence. Disney knows what the hell they're doing. Slim is
that
imitating...
space creature was fucking awesome. He was blowing out some rainbow, mystical fire stuff. It was tight.
Deep nether sphere.
He was from the deep nether sphere, just came out of a wormhole, just plopped right in.
Disney knows what the fuck they're doing with Baby Groot, though. They are marketing the hell out of Baby Groot.
Killing
and he is
it.
on full display in the opening sequence.
Dancing.
Doing a small jig, a jiggaroo. And, so Groot does his dances while, meanwhile, in the background, the Guardians are getting their asses kicked.
You can still see badass action in the background, and them flying around and fighting and
And there's a lot of great banter between them there, so it sets up that, buoyant, fun-loving Guardians adventure that we know we're going to be on.
How they flow and mesh well together, all their different personalities and stuff. Get a little comedy. But you get the comedy of watching Groot dance, and then you get the a little bit of badass action in the background, and very reminiscent to the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy, where Groot is dancing in the pot, and he even stops dancing when Drax looks at him, and then starts dancing again.
Rocket ends up, and I really love what they did with Rocket and Yondu in this film.
I do.
Rocket steals some batteries. Again, this is a spoiler review, by the way. I'm pretty sure that's in the title. If not, sorry.
Whoops.
Rocket steals some batteries, and I thought that they posed a really great question for Rocket through the whole movie. He's like, why do you do stuff like that? Why do you say the things you do?
We don't need those.
Why do you kick at people the way that you are? But before we get into Rocket's character progression, let's talk about who they steal the batteries from and who the job was for in the beginning. The Sovereign. How'd you feel about these gold people?
The Sovereign, I liked them. They weren't, huge for me. I didn't dislike them, but I wasn't like, oh my god, these guys so fucking awesome. They need their own movie.
They kind of looked to me a little... I don't know, B-movie sci-fi-ish, but I guess Guardians kind of plays on that a little bit.
Yeah, somewhat.
They worked for me.
80s
they
sci-fi
have like
movies.
This superiority thing going, and they don't like that the Guardians have crossed them.
I like that everyone should bow down to them because they are genetically modified to become superior and perfect in every way. So I think that the Sovereign I really like. I didn't really like them. I liked them. But I like the way they progressed the story in the beginning. They kind of catapulted everything to get going. But I do think that they were a slight bit overused. And at the end, in the cutscenes, you'll see why maybe. I mean, I think the next Guardians movie may be a little bit more around them. but I think that they were slightly overused in this film just a little bit. What did you think about them?
They're a golden thread throughout the entire film. I completely agree with what you just said. They used them as a catalyst. He makes a great point. They kind of came in every once in a while to keep the story moving in a certain way, or to push other characters into the story.
To bring them into the mix.
Specifically Yondu, so I thought they served their purpose, but I agree with you that they was a little bit overused.
Speaking of Yondu, the Ravengers they were in it a lot more. You got a big kind of scope of what they were all about. In the first movie, I've watched it a trillion bazillion times. I had no clue that there were more factions than just those Ravengers because their ship was so huge,
right?
And I mean, it was fucking planetary
so
big.
That's them.
You think that's all? I mean, that's a lot of dudes. That's all there is. Right. And then you go to find out that they're just one faction in a greater Ravager community.
Of Ravagers. I love the Ravagers too. Completely agree with everything someone just said. They added a lot to the Ravagers, especially with the story, and basically fleshed them out more, made them more of this bigger entity in the galaxy, if you will. So Slim, what was the big surprise here with the Ravagers?
Now, I was really, really shocked by this because I had looked up a lot of stuff about this movie. Never once did I see that Rocky Balboa was going to be in the movie. You hear his voice.
You can't take him, Rock!
You hear his voice, and I know I've talked to a couple different people who said, I heard his voice and was like, is that fucking Stallone?
Yeah, it kind of doesn't look like him a little bit. I mean, he's getting up there, Stallone.
And then, boom, cut to Sylvester Stallone. He's pissed. He's pissed as F.
Yeah, and I love that, too, that they show you that even though they're part of the Ravagers, that the Ravagers, or at least Stallone's Ravagers, have a higher code of ethics that they didn't appear to. Mm-hmm. I thought Stallone worked really well in the movie.
Oh, yeah, he did. He killed it. I thought he did a great job.
Point is, great cameo by Sylvester Stallone.
Superb.
You can't take him, Rock, but he did take this one.
Adrian!
So in the character stuff, let's get into...
Continuing.
Let's get into the character stuff. So I really noticed in the very beginning of this movie, and Slim also noticed this as well, they paired a lot of people off in this story-wise. Gamora and Star-Lord are kind of their own pair, but they do go off with Ego, but Ego is kind of not ever privy to their we see him interact with them both, but we don't see what he's thinking behind himself. He kind of reveals it later on, but we see a lot of Gamora and Chris Pratt. Well, sorry, Star-Lord.
Star-Lord.
He's I think of him. He transcends the roles.
See Pratt.
And I loved their banter between them. They had that unspoken thing, which they actually say, and that worked for me really well. I thought it fleshed out the characters.
Just kind of like Cheers.
Continuing on, we've got another great pair that they
great
did,
pair
which
was Rocket and Yondu.
Worked perfectly together.
Really good, because you never really thought about it in the first one, but really they are a very similar character type. They're both using emotional defenses to hide how emotional
a-holes.
They really are.
Exactly.
By being straight up
They're
dicks.
hiding their gooey soft core because it's been hurt before.
Yeah.
Similar to me and Slim.
They've been jabbed.
So, I completely agree with him. Yondu stole the show, though. Now, Rocket is always great. Specifically, somebody says something about Rocket's nose, and you see Rocket kind of feel it out, and he looks so sad. It really,
brings a tear.
You heard a ton of them go, "Aww," collectively in the theater. But Michael Rooker stole the show as Yondu.
Oh, yeah.
Yondu was very hurt by the fact that the Ravagers may not honor him in a certain way. So he goes throughout the whole movie through a sort of redemption arc. And if there's one thing I love, Slim, it's a good old-fashioned goddamn redemption arc.
Redemption.
Yondu completely redeemed himself, loved seeing it. And that scene between him and Rocket specifically where he says, "You are me, boy."
Yep.
You are me, boy. He killed it. It was kind of unexpected because to be honest, it's been 2 weeks since we've seen it. I don't remember exactly what plays out before then, but I do remember being kind of thrown off by it. But I think it was a great moment of Yondu basically saying "Cut the bullshit. We got something important to do." Mm-hmm. That's a terrible Michael Rooker, but I loved it. The last one, of course, is Drax and Mantis.
Drax and Mantis.
Good pair.
But they were, everybody else was a very similar type of pair. Gamora and Nebula, similar characters.
Similars.
Rocket and Yondu, similar characters. Peter and Ego, somewhat similar. Father-son, kind of similar.
Familial similar.
Mantis and Drax, opposites.
Except they both are a little socially
inept.
Different.
Exactly. They don't know how to socially work the expansion of doing things like I am as well.
But on different spectrums, right? Like Drax is on.
Drax is just like on the Thor level where he grew up and was raised in a very strange world where that was normal to him.
Warrior culture.
Mantis has never seen another human being, so she doesn't know what it's like. She only knows by touching them and feeling their emotions and stuff like that. So they were very opposite, and it was a great connection.
To see them connect that way, kind of as social outcasts, even though neither one of them may not realize it. I guess Mantis did, but awesome. Thought that was really, really great.
So, Sully, I want to ask you something. What did you like about the movie?
What did I like about it?
I think that you had more problems with it than I did, but I want to hear first what you liked.
Star-Lord's movie for sure. I just liked the way that they, first of all, the pairing, the way they paired everyone off like that. It worked really well together. They gave these people similar arcs. These arcs all had satisfying ends. I thought that they elaborated on the universe very successfully, made me very more interested in like more of the Ravager factions, more of what's going on in the Marvel spectrum of space. What were your favorite parts?
What I liked and what my favorite parts were... again, the soundtrack. Okay, so as soon as I saw the first one, I loved the soundtrack. Now, this one took a little bit longer to grow on me. When I was watching the movie, I didn't really think about it because in the first one, the songs are tied in with the scenes. Like, they're connected with what's going on in the scene.
They set them up.
The second one, it's more just, I mean, there are a couple of scenes where the music is tied in, but not as much. Right, or as well or as much, really. The humor and action mix, I love that. I love that about Guardians, and it kind of seems like Marvel has taken that from Guardians and putting that into a lot of movies since Guardians.
Point,
and sorry.
You're good.
And then...
get out of my brain right now. This guy is... He's making a lot of good points, especially about the soundtrack. That was dead on.
And then my final point is... I like the fact that it all tied together in the end. I mean, throughout the whole movie, they were all in different pairs.
They tie the threads very well.
Slowly inching towards each other.
Executed it.
And then at the end, boom, they're all together. They're all working for one goal. And they all had separate goals at the beginning and in the middle and all that stuff. And at the end, they all just...
They became what we like to call a team.
A team.
Oh, yeah.
A real good squad, a.k.a. Guardians.
There were a few things we got to get into that we did not enjoy about the film. One of mine was, I think that Guardians, they realized how cool they were, and they ran with that. Now, I'm not saying that's always a bad thing. Some people, that can be a little insufferable. It was not insufferable. It did fall flat at some times, and I think that was mainly showed in some of the humor. I also thought that some of the Drax stuff, they really kind of took away from Drax's characterization to make him, the night like he's Seinfeld up there with the spotlight on him, doing his stand-up. He was throwing jokes out left and right. Now, he did connect with Mantis in a really cool moment, and I thought that worked really well. But I gotta say that they kind of They kind of used a lot of the humor, and some of it fell flat for me. But again, some of it worked. A lot of the quips between Rocket, a lot of the quips of Yondu, Star-Lord always was dead on. Right. But besides that, those are really my only cons, I would say, is that they kind of sacrificed some Drax stuff to make him funnier. Like, I would have liked to more learned about it. He mentions his wife, but it's a joke about how she didn't dance or something like that. Right. I would have preferred a more heartfelt moment to, just to also ground Drax too. He was basically just a joke machine.
Like, even in his emotional scenes, he was joking.
Still joking.
When you're trying to
even with Mantis, where he's like, "You are beautiful" on the inside.
Right.
And and he says something about like, "You are hideous," or I would be. That he always had a joke still, which kind of I felt undercut sometimes. What could have been used as to make us feel more for Drax. Give me some of your critiques.
So I like the movie a lot, so I have very few critiques, and really it kind of goes along with what you were saying. I do think that they tried a little bit too hard.
They knew they were cool.
I think they tried too hard, trying to be too funny. They were dragging jokes, like you said, out too long. It's like, okay, this isn't funny anymore, for me at least. And yeah, I did hear a lot of people laughing the whole time, and when I saw it with my family, they thought it was really funny. I guess that was more directed towards like the kid audience and stuff. But other than that, I really don't have too much that I could say bad about it because I loved it. The predictability of the fact that Ego was going to be bad because, well, A, you don't really have any other people who are going to be bad guys.
Yeah.
You don't have anybody.
Well,
you're just going to be a happy story the whole time.
They set up the gold people, but you can kind of tell the whole time they're not the real bad
Right,
guy.
yeah.
All right, well, then let's get into what everyone's been waiting for. That's right, all 10 of you. What's our grade, Slim? What are you going to grade this 1 out of 10? And you can go point decimal system. Yeah, go ahead and lead it off.
I'm going to give it a 9.
A direct 9,
A straight up 9, even Steven.
Okay.
Shia LaBeouf style, we're going 9 even.
Okay.
How about you?
I think I'm going to give it a 7.9. This one I thought was still a good sequel. Not as good as the first one. To me, it just didn't have some of the charm of the first one. But I think a lot of that charm of the first one is learning. Each one of these characters got their own beat to learn who they are. Mm-hmm. And in this one, we're just kind of reintroduced to them as the Guardians. But I just think that it's not as good as the first one. I'm going to give it a 7.9.
That's a good review. That's a good, honest number. The second one, I don't think it was as good as the first one, but I still had a fucking great time.
Yeah,
the whole time I watched it. Definitely. It is fun.
I want to see it again in theaters. I mean, that's how much fun I had it. But yeah, so anyway, 7.9 for me.
9 for me.
And that was the review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Dose.
We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for stopping by.
Don't forget to subscribe. Peace. And please hit the like button. All the bullshit that everybody spouts.
All the stuff.
At the end of a video. Thanks for being here. Peace. Love.
Shrek the Third.